Hello and welcome to Murphy's Garden, and we're getting around quite a bit because we're over in Lincolnshire at the moment and we're visiting family, and we're coming to a garden that I have great sentimental value for because we used to live not far from here, just up the road, and this was my second home when the kids were little. When I was a new mum, I visited here quite a lot, bringing the children along. It's just lovely to get outside and to let the children play. And this is a National Trust house. It's called Belton House. And as I say, it's located just outside of Grantham. Grantham is famous for lots of things, one of which is birthplace of Margaret Thatcher, and also birthplace of Isaac Newton, scientist, mathematician, thinker, craftsman, was born at the nearby Woolsthorpe Manor, which is also a National Trust property, and it's here that he splits sunlight into colours with a prism, and an apple fell from a tree to inspire his theory of gravity. And also it's lots of RAF bases around here. Cranwell and Waddington is just up the road, and funnily enough, in the last video we saw the red arrows fly over back home, returning back home over here to Lincolnshire. So Belton House is an absolutely beautiful place. It's a National Trust house, and one of the wonderful things about it, I've visited lots of National Trust houses, and I can honestly say, as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the very best for families. So if you've got children or grandchildren and you happen to be in the area, I really recommend that you visit here. As you can see, we're surrounded by lots of families. There's big areas of open ground, but best of all for children, there's a wonderful sort of very natural woodland and playground, and it did used to have a little train that passed through, so we'll go and have a look if that's still here. It's 14 years since we lived here, so I'm interested to see if much has changed. So we'll go and explore and just take a tour around. One of the things I would say, so we visited Woollerton Old Hall, which was a very formal garden, and then we've just visited Hodnet Hall, which is a very large parkland, and this kind of combines the two. It's a very large garden, huge parklands, but it's also very formal, so it combines the vastness and the formality. So let's go and have a look. And this is the view of the front of Belton House, and the view that visitors arriving here would have seen as they pulled up in their carriages. Belton House sits elegantly in formal gardens with views across pleasure grounds and an ancient deer park. Although built on a relatively modest scale, it has a superlative collection of porcelain and silver, a world-renowned library, and an architectural finesse that reflects the wealth and education of generations of the Brownlow family. It is often cited as being the perfect example of an English country house. And I remember coming down here about 2 days after giving birth with my brand new pram on these cobbles and my brand new baby inside. Oh, and this toilet has memories for me too, because Olivia, when she was a toddler, got stuck in one of the toilet cubicles and I had to climb over the top and save her and nearly kill myself in the process. And here is the shop with some lovely plants to buy. I've got to try and resist buying more plants. My addictive plant buying is getting out of control. And there's a lovely gift shop in there, so we'll go and check that out after we've looked around. This is the tea room, but just interesting to note these nice planters. So they're like the kind of metal troughs that Mike made for us, but there they are in a longer version, nicely planted. It's all done very well on a large scale, so there's plenty of room. They do get a lot of visitors, so there's loads and loads of room. Tables outside, there's bookshops. Yeah, there's a lot to do here. Really good day out. And as we come out of the courtyard, this is the view that opens up. So this is the very formal pond, and then we've got the little church in the background and also the conservatory. So this is a formal looking area with this fountain in the middle. Now if we head up this path, you'll see this splendid view, and this is the back of Belton House. And some of you may find this view quite familiar, and in fact Belton House has been used in several films, probably the most famous of which is Pride and Prejudice, and this was Rosings, the residence of Lady Catherine de Bourgh, who Mr Collins speaks about with such adoration. And anyone who has seen it will remember the very dashing Mr Darcy, played by Colin Firth,
alongside the heroine Elizabeth Bennet, or Lizzie, played by Jennifer Earle. Both played their parts extremely well, as did the rest of the cast. A really strong cast all round.
And I've just read that they did actually date for about a year after the making of Prejudice, which I didn't know, and perhaps would account for the very palpable chemistry that we're witness to on screen.
And here's a picture of the cast, led by Mr Collins, walking up this very same path as are Elizabeth and Mr Darcy.
And this is the little church which was the chapel for Mr Collins in Pride and Prejudice. So you see him in the BBC adaptation sort of rushing out in anticipation of Lady Catherine de Bourgh her arrival. So it features a lot in this, and you may recognise it. And one of the rooms that Lady Catherine de Bourgh she features in it, she's got the hunting scene in the background, which was actually inside Belton. And the other film it's been used for is the moon dial. I will have to find the statue of the moon dial, which was featured in that film as well. So it's used quite a lot for various different films. I think this is the moon dial that was used in the film.
Moondial is a children's book written by Helen Creswell, and it was made into a film in 1988, and it's about a young girl called Minty who's staying with her aunt in the village of Belton after her mother is injured in a car accident. She stumbles upon this moondial, which enables her to travel back in time, where she becomes involved in the lives of two children from previous centuries. It's a lovely book, and one I read with my children, really worth a read. And in this part of the garden we've got lots of topiary being used so well.
I like the way these yews are pruned into these nice little pyramid shapes. That looks good. We've got lots of spare yew, so perhaps we can incorporate them into some sort of design a bit like this. And even the way they've edged the grass looks good in patterns with metal edging. It's nice to see the golden yew. I never thought to plant the golden variety, but it is a lot lighter and brighter than the traditional yew. Oh, look, the geese have got a little baby, so it'll probably hiss at me, the mummy. Oh, that's cute. There's lots of lovely land to walk around, and there's a lake. If we carry on down this path, it gets to a big lake. So it's good for dog walking. Dogs are allowed in here on short leads.
And sadly Murphy hasn't come with us. He's getting a bit too old for long walks. So he's quite happy. He's camped out under the oven because we're having roast pork for lunch, and he's hopeful that it might leap out of the oven into his mouth.
Oh, this is beautiful. This is the boat house and the lake.
Some swans and their 5 cygnets, and it's a beautiful day. I'm just enjoying out for a lovely walk with my son, and we'll head back now from the lake back towards the garden again and have a little look round a bit more of the garden. And here you just catch a glimpse of the house through the trees. And there's some lovely walks to do. They're downloadable walks with seasonal trails. There's snowdrops and bluebells. And they also do events such as open air, cinema and theatre, and an autumn market. And in the run up to Christmas, the house and gardens are illuminated in a lovely light display.
And this is the glass house, so we'll go and have a look inside. The gardens are lovely, but they're definitely not quite as formal as they used to be, adopting this kind of slightly more looser style that is now in vogue. And here we've got some patterns of box parterre. Yeah, so the planting, what have they got? They've got cicerynchums at the back, lots of irises which have just gone over, some digitalis, and the front is edged with geraniums and alliums which have gone over as well. And then around the pond we've got lots of this berberis hedging, and punctuated with lots of
box and yew, and a lovely fountain in the middle. So we'll go and check out what's inside the glass houses. So they're calling this the conservatory. No dogs. The dogs are allowed in the rest of the garden, but no dogs allowed in here. And perhaps that's because on a hot day like this, if Murphy was here, he'd probably go and sit in that water in the pond. So this is very reminiscent of the glass houses that we saw when we visited Kew, but obviously on a smaller scale, but absolutely lovely. I'm not good at all these tropical plants, I don't know what they're all called. So I'll just zoom in on some plant labels for those of you that are interested in tropicals. Oh my gosh, it's hot in here. And this is the estate church. So just putting up a new wall there. The wall looks like it's collapsed. And round the back here we've got a little walled garden. And we've got roses, geraniums, aquilegia, hemerocallis, and some fruit trees, apple trees in the middle, or in each of the quadrants. Some peonies over there. And another parterre with box. And this lovely view of the house.
I personally think the planting could be a little bit better in these parts, but I know they have had very dry weather in Lincolnshire. They haven't had any rain for such a long time, but I think there are better plants perhaps than they have used here.
And this is berberis, so this has been used, we've seen this quite often now, used as hedging in perhaps place of so much box, and it does make this lovely contrast. Here we've got it with this yellow privet, so it's a lovely contrast to the golden privet. We've got this lovely fountain in the middle. So I think that is Prunus lusitanica, or Portuguese laurel. That's it in flower. And this is it used, again like we have, only ours are a bit bigger, but this is it used as a topiary tree. These are phlomis, and lots of forget-me-nots that have gone to seed. And a nice selection of foxgloves. And here is the fountain. Wow. This is a maize that was planted last time I came here, which was 14 years ago. It had just been planted, so it's quite nice to see all these years later that it's growing up. It was a bit easier to get out of last time, so I'm a bit trepidatious going in case I can't find my way out.
Last time you could just look over the top. Can't really get lost. I'm sure I can. Are you lost? And we've all made it out.
Before I could see it, I could smell this lovely, intoxicating smell of a Philadelphus.
It's so lovely to come back here after all this time, and I think just brings back memories of being a new mum, and when you're at home all day, having been used to being out at work, and you're at home all day with children. And I recognised early on that I just needed to get outside. We just had a small garden, so we'd pack up a picnic and really just spend the day here. And perhaps that's where I got my love of formal gardens and definitely outdoor spaces, and the children did too. It definitely laid the foundations for a love of being outdoors.
And I think it's about time for an ice cream. There's a little new baby.
And this is the National Trust shop, and as always it's full of lots of lovely things to buy and some lovely gift ideas. I just bought a couple of birthday cards for some forthcoming birthdays, and so we'll leave the shop now and we'll head over to the playground. And we're a bit too big for the playground, but we're just going to go over there just to show those of you that may be interested with going with small children what's there.
I used to play poo sticks here.
And so this is the playground. It goes really far back, it goes all the way down to the far end, and interesting to see that the little train track is still here, so the train does still run. I don't know if it's running today or not, but that's a lovely thing to do as well. And this was a fantastic place to come, wasn't it, Josh? As a little boy, it was magical. There were castles and you could play shops, and just wonderful, wonderful memories for us here. Really lovely time spent here.
So thank you for joining us on this tour of Belton House Gardens. If you happen to be in the Lincolnshire area, really look this up. It's a really good family day out, and the gardens are beautiful, but so is the house. It's really, really good to go and have a look around that as well. We haven't had time today, but thank you very much for watching, and join us again in the next video. Bye for now.